Well, it doesn't matter where you are in the chain, it seems, with a farmer, trader, elevator, or end users. Everyone is asking the same question. What do we do now with this market? And if the StoneX crop estimates released this week are true, we will be swimming in an abundance come harvest time. Kohli and Cavanaugh will tell us what they think coming up. State Fair is underway, and it's one of the best times of the year for the Farm Bureau to show the rest of the world how farming does it and how important it is to the state of Indiana. So if you're looking for a Farm Bureau member this week, they are probably at the State Fair celebrating the contributions that Hoosier farm families do in providing food, fuel, and clothing to our state, the nation, and of course, the world. Support your Farm Bureau with a membership. Simply go online to itpaystobeamember.org. Well, guys, we've got a large carry in the market here. Producers have way too much unpriced grain. The environment created by all of that is totally bearish, and the market really can't move. It doesn't seem, David, until some of what's in the bin moves.
Yeah, I've been talking about that. When they finally give up and sell it, that's when the market finally starts to go up. But, I just saw that this week, that the whole Corn Belt, it was the coolest July they've seen in many, many years. And what does that do for that corn crop? I'm calling it moon corn because it's growing to the moon. It's 12 foot tall. Beans, I know they've turned yellow, but they're going to be coming back somewhat, although they've been hurt a little more than what the corn was. But if you hang on to this grain, it'll certainly hang on to you. And the harder it is to sell with a cheaper price, you've got to look something to do to kind of protect yourself. If you do sell it, you can do all sorts of different ways. So question the people you deal with, say, what's my best out on this?
Yeah. Now, John, you got an intriguing piece roll across your desk this week. Apparently, our state law says bushels have to be priced on or before August 31st. The Indiana office of StoneX is telling us that balances are increasing as more producers are unloading grain rather than pricing it. What's going on here with this August 31st date?
Yeah, that's kind of a key thing, that delayed price grain has to be priced by the end of August. Now, it can't be rolled to a basis contract. However, there's an awful lot of grain that's in delayed price, more than normal. And I have actually heard some reports. Some elevators are still taking in more DP grain than they're getting priced. And yet we're only 4 weeks away from the end of the month. And by then, it's all got to be priced. This is a little bit scary on the basis. There's going to be an awful lot of stuff that's going to have to be priced. And I really encourage producers right now that, especially if you see some firm basis out there, roll to a basis contract or just get it priced and be done with it.
And David, everybody we talk to, it seems, all of the big elevators, they're telling us that there is a lot of grain out there in on-farm storage. So you were just mentioning getting creative, David. It seems like it's really time to get creative with puts and calls and whatever.
Yeah, that's the power of the options. And I know a lot of you are saying, well, I don't understand the options. Well, that's one way to learn, because if you look at a bicycle every day and never ride one, you'll never know how to ride a bicycle. But the thing on the options is that it allows you to capture back some upside if it does occur in the options market with smaller costs than buying the futures contract and smaller risk than the futures contract. So keep that in mind, and especially if you have a grain merchant that is really, really good with options, because I know over the years as I was a broker, I had customers that were doing option spreads and they were making money on both sides of it. That was just amazing. So it's going to be hard for these farmers to start accepting this. But again, until they sell the grain, the price is going to go up.
I think it is really time to get creative with it, John.
Actually, it's past time to get creative. That should have occurred several months ago. Yeah. I will say, David, though, I agree about the options and the opportunities there, but I really don't like seeing producers getting into them when they do not understand them at all. If you have a good trader to work with who you trust and who knows options, that's fine. But don't do it unless you're comfortable with doing it.
Yeah, the situation that we're in is really difficult, and that's why so many people are saying, what do we do now? Especially when you're getting information like came out of Kansas State University this past week. They calculated supply and demand tables for July, and they put a 50% chance that USDA's 52 bushel soybean yield estimate is accurate. And then they projected that out and said, if that does happen, we get a 52 bushel average in the nation's soybean crop, then the price is going to be about $11.10. David, I'm having a hard time believing that.
Yeah, a very hard time. Because if you'll think back, the high in the beans after $13 was $10.95. That's the stopping point, $10.95 to $11. Once you get over that, then things tend to go up. But you don't realize how long did they hit $11 and hold in the beans before they started to go down below it. And that's the point. They're seeing the bean yield increasing, and they're seeing the corn yield increasing, and they're saying to people, hey, don't bank in $11 price on this stuff if you haven't sold it yet, and don't bank in $5 on the corn because it doesn't exist anyway. And the point is, you're going to have to look more at the downside with yields we're seeing than the upside of this market.
Oh, I don't know where they came up with that $11.10 number with a 52 yield, because with a 52 yield, you're still looking at a 300 plus carryover on soybeans. So that's not projected $11 beans in this market. That might keep them above $10. I won't argue against that. But if we have good weather in August, and frankly, the current forecasts continue to suggest the next few weeks are going to be on the cool, wet side throughout most of the Midwest. If that materializes, you're looking at a better than a 52 yield on soybeans. So don't hang on looking for $11. Frankly, we're on the verge of breaking below 10 and going to $9.
Yeah.
That's what I'm afraid of. But that number, frankly, it's crazy.
Yeah. Like I said, I looked at that and I said, okay, you're going to have to do some explaining to get that one past me. All of this really points to something that we've been talking about for months, and that is that one of the keys to this whole thing is demand. Whether we have huge yields or not huge yields, and StoneX came out this week with their estimates. They put us down here in Indiana for a couple of brand new records. 205 in corn and 61 or something like that in beans. Wonderful if that happens. I don't know how good that is.
I don't think 205 for corn is crazy.
I don't either. But I mean, the bottom line here is it's all about demand. And David, these flash sales this week from China, 132,000 tons of beans to China, new marketing year. Same on Friday, 202,000 on Friday. That's a drop in the bucket. That's not going to get us out of the doldrums in these soybeans.
And Rob, there was a quote on Twitter that how come they're putting China on these bean sales instead of unknown? Because before this, we kept seeing all these unknown sales and it's got to be China. Well, now we're getting China on the front end of this. And you're finally starting to see, yes, China is buying beans from the U.S. But why are they buying beans from the U.S. when there's so much available from South America? Hey, you just want to get locked in on as much as you can get locked in, especially since they're all new crop. And I think they're just protecting themselves.
Well, the other part of that, too, is that we've talked about this in weeks past, and John brought this up about the soybean stocks at major Chinese ports, still at record high levels. Their crush volume is down, so what are they going to do with more soybeans, right? Soybean meal stocks in China almost double last year's stocks. Animal feed output down by 4% first half of the year. David, what are they doing with all these beans?
Well,
that's a good question.
They're just trying to protect themselves. I think the Chinese just want the beans available to them if they ever really, really need them. Plus, if you look what's going on in the world market, especially the wheat market, Russia said their bids are on the rise at their export markets because of the poor wheat crop that they had. Also, French wheat and German wheat areas are too wet. I've seen a couple pictures on Twitter from France and from Germany that show the water all the way up to the top, the heads of the wheat, and they're not going to be able to harvest them. Lithuania and Latvia are looking at average yields but poor quality. So that's what's propped up the corn market here temporarily is the wheat. But on the beans, there aren't many friends on the bean side. They're just kind of looking at the supply and demand numbers coming out later on this month and trying to figure out maybe there'll be something happening in that.
Guys, there's something else when you talk about China that is not getting talked about very much. I've seen a little bit about it, but there's still a lot of concern about the flooding in China.
Right.
How much it may damage their corn crop. And, as we all know, we do not get accurate information out of China.
What?
I'm sorry. It's true. And I'm kind of watching that one, too, because, if there's a problem with the corn crop in China, they certainly are not going to let anybody know about it. And yet we know for a fact that there's been a lot of problems, flooding, etc. How much has their corn crop been damaged? There's a chance maybe we're going to get a big surprise there, but at the moment, we just really don't know.
Yeah. David talked to export sales, old crop corn sales, still the real sad sack this week. Mexico is our biggest buyer again for new crop corn. Yeah. So that export sales report this week is still looking a little bleak, right?
Yeah, it does, except one bright spot, Rob and John. China bought sorghum, 163,000 tons of sorghum, John. That is double what they've been typically buying. Wheat was 287, corn old crop 168 if they could have found that. And on the beans, 376, new crop 632. This is embarrassing. Beef 17.7, Korea was the big buyer there. But in pork, it was 31.5. Mexico bought at 12.8. Where they were the biggest buyers of pork from the U.S. was Mexico again. But on the grain side, I'm sorry, there's tears flowing down a lot of these exporters right now.
Well, David, now that you mentioned livestock, the July cattle on feed report showed placements in June at 93% of last year's number, so going down, not up. And that was even a bit less than what the pre-report estimates were. So that's pretty bullish news for beef.
It is. And we've been wondering for months, when are we finally going to see more cattle coming to the market and being sold and getting the price of beef to come down? And we're not seeing it, gentlemen. And I'm telling you that going forward, a lot of people, I know the feed cost is down. And that's one of the big issues here we should be talking about. Right. But I'll tell you, they're not seeing demand here for the feeder cattle at this point because people, I think, that are cattlemen are worried about what's the downside on this thing if I do see it go down, because these are awfully high prices. So what they're going to say is, hey, I want the best quality cattle I can get. I mean, I want everything I can get instead. I don't want any lower quality beef being sold because that would really, really hurt if the price goes down.
All right. Well, I'm sure there is something, maybe more than one thing that we missed this week, and that's why we always turn it over to John here at the end of the program and let him tell us what we missed with the final word.
Well, let's call this reality check time. We've talked for years about how South America is getting bigger and planting more acres. In fact, I just saw where they're expecting Brazil's acres to go up another 1.5% this coming year. And that's been going on, of course, for the last 50 some odd years. And they're getting a bigger and bigger share of the world market. To pin that down, I've got a chart sitting here in front of me, and it's showing the percent of world soybean exports by country. Now, this goes back to the crop year of 2000, 2001. That's 23 years ago. Brazil's share of world soybean exports was about 28%. The United States' share of world soybean exports was in the vicinity of 53 to 54%. That was 23 years ago. This coming year, what we're currently projecting is, listen to this, folks, the U.S. share of world soybean exports has gone down to 28%. Brazil's share of the world soybean export trade is up to 58%. Wow. Completely reversed each other.
Kohli and Cavanaugh made possible each week by support from the Allen County Farm Bureau. And I know your local county farm bureaus are supporting Indiana agriculture every single day. And to keep up with that, Indiana Farm Bureau members can sign up for The Dispatch, the electronic newsletter that is sent out weekly during the legislative session and every other week the rest of the year. To start getting The Dispatch, all you got to do is go online to infb.org. Just another one of the great benefits you get from your membership. Go online to itpaystobeamember.org.
Podcasts by Federated Media.